Welcome, Facebook Live community. Here we are once again. Guanacaste, Costa Rica, Rythmia Life Advancement Center. And I'm your host, R. Christian Minson, Breathwork Edition here this week, or Breathwork / Monastic Wisdom Edition. If you are joining in on the recording, always remember that we do about 4 minutes of introduction, 4 or 5 minutes. If you skip ahead, you actually get to the content. Right now, I'm just saying hi, waiting for people to show up. Come join on and type your name in the chat bar. Get used to communicating and saying who you are, where you're from. Hello, give me words of praise or words of encouragement or words of whatever. Give me likes, give me hearts, give me little angry faces. Just show me that you're out there somewhere. You number of people that's on, and Susan Ellis from California, welcome, first one to communicate with me. Welcome. How are you today? While we're waiting, I will say that it was my birthday on Tuesday, April 9th. I believe that was, way back when I was born. I was born on a Tuesday, I believe. So I don't know what cosmic significance that has, except that I'm a year older, year wiser, still strong like an ox. Hello from an angel from Washington, Spokane. Susan's giving me some words of praise, thanks. And happy birthday. Gord Barrett showing up. Excellent, Gord. He's coming here soon. I will say for my birthday, I did get this. One of our assistants here, Gula, her name is Gula. She's actually a Cirque du Soleil performer, former Cirque du Soleil performer. So she really knows how to twist and turn and all that. Anyway, she gave me this for my birthday. What is it? A little tortoise. Said the tortoise represents wisdom, represents longevity, represents protection because it has that big shell. So all these things she felt like were in alignment with me, and I thought that was very nice. Good present. So I'm wearing it in honor of her and us out here. Welcome Jennifer Sedini, welcome Julie from Ontario, Canada, welcome Marina from Canada, and Michelle Dixon's back again. Excellent. We got a good crew. Let's give it another minute or so as we strive to reach our normal amount of online people. Went out last night to the local, while everybody else was in ceremony. I'm on tonight with the breathwork ceremonies. I went to the local market in town, ate a lot of good food. It was just a little bit of fun, a little bit of relaxation. Michelle saying hi, hello, and so good. Well, we were up to our numbers, and then they dropped down a little bit. Let's get a few more because we got like 20 seconds left before I like to begin. Say hi, give me some likes, give me some thumbs up, give me some conversation. Tell me what's up with you out there in the world. So as I mentioned, Gord, Friday, you're coming here coming Friday? All right, wait, what? And everyone else here today from Ontario, Canada. Oh, 16 days till Rythmia. Yeah, she'll be here in 16 days. Excellent. Excellent. I'm hoping to get out to Toronto here soon, relatively soon. Got somebody in the works to help me put together a breath workshop out there to give you guys a taste of this marvelous stuff. And of course, those of you who've been to Rythmia before have had that taste. And good. All right. Well, 20 more seconds. Who's that? Avara coming on. Good. Welcome, everybody. Keep coming. Keep them coming. Keep chatting. Get your enthusiasm up because we're about to begin here. So welcome officially to the Friday edition of Rythmia Live. I'm your host, R. Christian Minson, the director of the Breathwork program here at Rythmia Life Advancement Center. for the last year and a half now, just past the year and a half mark. I'm a certified transformational breath facilitator and senior trainer with the Transformational Breath Foundation, speaker, author, internet coach, and basically your catalyst for awakening and transformation. So today we are talking about spiritual study, which is the importance of why we would want to engage in spiritual study, and some of the recommendations on how we can study, especially in that spiritual realm, a bit more succinctly, to consume spiritual thoughts and assimilate them into your own life. This is really the key, right? My spiritual teacher used to talk a lot about spiritual indigestion, and talking about those kind of people who would just consume and consume and consume, read this book, read that book. They knew everything about every book, but when it came to applying it in their own lives, that was a whole different story. So we're really talking about, well, let's get into why. And before we do, let's just say a few more. First time seeing me live, Julie Reed, welcome. Come on in and get a good seat and ask any questions you want along the way. Participate with likes, hearts, and questions or comments. Ellis there, Susan Ellis. I've been practicing since my trip to Rythmia. Brilliant. That's what I love to hear. Laura, happy late birthday. Thank you, fellow Aries. Excellent. I've attracted a lot of Aries into my life. So Kevin Peterson, back again from BC. Good to see you. Alejandro from just down the street here, and Shelly Albers, my good friend, possibly the longest standing friend, at least in this chat for sure, out there in Crested Butte, Colorado. If you are there, see her, because you may want to move there. It's so beautiful, and she does real estate out there in Crested Butte. So welcome, Shelly, and welcome everybody. So why is this, why am I doing this topic? When you think about it, I saw some number. I don't know if this is the right number, but it is some astronomical number. Like, we think about 75,000 thoughts a day. So 75,000 thoughts are going through this head each and every day. What's interesting about that is actually very few of those thoughts are new, meaning have never been thought before, or are relatively obscure and have come out of, way back when. Most of the thoughts we think of, all the 75,000 thoughts each day, are the same thing over and over again, the same basic theme of 5 or 10 different things that we're constantly thinking about. So how do we think new thoughts? How do we get ourselves into new thought patterns? To think new thoughts, we have to consume new thoughts. Of course, we can also do, we have in our aftercare package an ayahuasca tincture, which helps continue to grow the neurological pathways in your brain. So apparently microdosing ayahuasca helps create neurogenesis, or the growth of neurological pathways in the brain. So this is the physical mechanism of how we think new thoughts. We have these new neurological pathways with which a new thought can be bridged from one neuron to another, and voila, we start to develop new habits that way, and this is how our life changes. But where do those new thoughts come from? Partly they may be from divine inspiration, which is great, but most of us are still working on that channel. Many of them then come through consuming new thoughts by people who have elevated state of consciousness out there. Now, this topic on spiritual study, I've addressed before in a larger context. I've done a Facebook Live called The 5 Daily Habits of Highly Spiritual People. 5 habits, and this came, I didn't mention in the introduction, I usually do, that I was a former monk. So this is kind of very important to this basic topic, because the information I'm giving really comes back from the monastic experience, the experience of living daily in an ashram environment, in a monastery, where we let go of all unnecessary distractions, like paying bills, like having to make food, like having to tend to children, like having to get our car fixed. All these unnecessary distractions, right? At least unnecessary if you're single and you're a monk, monos, by yourself. Of course, these are very necessary distractions if you live it out in the world. But, it helped us do away with those things so that our sole focus, our narrow focus, could be on our spiritual evolution, which, if you've heard me talk before, and if you haven't, you will, that the foundation of everything that I talk about is really the whole purpose of life itself. And the purpose of life is the evolution of our consciousness, ultimately to God consciousness, or to embracing our higher self, that oneness, that nirvana, that samadhi, as they call it in the Eastern traditions. So to serve this purpose is what everything we do in life is about. And in this monastic experience, I boiled it down to 5 daily habits. There were 5 things. I mean, there were a lot of things that we did that supported the evolution of our consciousness, but 5 things that we did regularly. And you can go back and listen to that one to get all 5. Today, I'm singling out one, which was study, and in particular, spiritual study. How to consume thoughts of somebody who has a consciousness that you want to have. It may be slightly higher than yours. It may be somebody who's self-realized, who has it all, and you're wanting to find out how you can bridge that gap. You need to learn how they think, how they behave, and start to emulate that. So this is what we're really talking about today. These 5 habits are habits to elevate your consciousness, which is that name of the game. So study is one of them, and it's important to study because it's really helping you think outside of the box of your normal everyday thoughts. So you got these 75,000 thoughts going and going, but they stay in this realm. Now you study, and poop, poop, some of your thoughts start to come from outside of that box, and you start to expand your box, which is really how it works. We think we're this big, all of a sudden we get a new calibration. We realize we're much bigger than we thought, and we continue to realize that with the more study, the more that we do. With that, I bought that package. You've been using the tincture daily. Excellent, Susan. Love to hear any report if there anything that you've been experiencing with it. Lena from Norway. Did you know I used to live in Norway, Oslo, Norway, for 3 years of my life? Some of the most fun years I experienced. Learned all my winter sports there in Norway. And so welcome, Lena. Brody, hey, Brody. In Africa right now. Brody helps us out a month on here in Costa Rica, and then he's off in Africa working hard for the cause. Avara. Yes, bedtime has almost become my favorite time since microdosing. I wake up with a new thought, problem solved. So thank you for the aftercare package. It's helping to keep me connected. Excellent. Well, I didn't realize gourd. An Aya tincture, yes. So listen to what Avara just said, and listen to what Suzanne just said, and we will talk about it when you arrive here, gourd. So just bring extra money on your credit card or some cash along with you. Leslie, hello. Kathy and Suzanne, dreaming again, answers to questions. Yes, good. All right. And I guess when I think back about spiritual study, I think fondly because as a monk, those were some of the more calm moments of the day. We would regularly have a study period right after breakfast. So breakfast would be from 8:30 to 9, and before we went and did our service activity, we actually studied from 9 to 9:30. And we'd gather out in the middle of the courtroom, grassy, flat area, picnic tables, some of those nice plasticky recliner chairs, and a group of us, usually about 10 or so, would be out there following the rules of study, which we'll go over. And, you know, the sun's on you, it's nice and mellow, you're outside, absorbing the spiritual knowledge, and that knowledge would largely come from the teachings, in this case of Paramahansa Yogananda, who was the preceptor of the path that I followed. Books of saints and the lives of different saintly figures and how they navigated through life and their philosophies. So all this stuff was what we consumed, you know, rather than newspapers or, you know, Entertainment Weekly or, you know, People Magazine and all this stuff, which is the normal fare for people who, you know, who are engaged in the world and wonder why there's so much drama in their life and yet continue to consume drama on a daily basis. And I'd say, you know, you are what you eat, right? You've heard that phrase. And it's not just what we eat physically, the food we eat, but what we eat mentally, what we eat emotionally. All of this stuff, essentially what we consume, what we draw into our being, gets reflected back out as who we are. So if we're a consumer of daily drama, and that's television shows and soap operas and People magazines and all that, don't be surprised if your life shows up elements of drama and strife and struggle, because, you know, that's what you're consuming regularly. On the flip side, if you want a life of peace, a life of deep inner satisfaction and bliss, start consuming the knowledge and the understanding of people who have lived those kind of lives. Okay, so gets into what is spiritual study. I talked about why it's so important to us, but what is it really? And I'd say in a nutshell, it's researching, reading, and or listening to wisdom of others who have developed their consciousness in a way that you want to develop yours, right? So in a broader context, this could be anything, you know, this could be about business, this could be about relationships, this could be about, you know, developing different kind of skills. But spiritual study is really focusing specifically on your spiritual development, the spiritual evolution of your consciousness, which again, as I believe in all of everything I say comes from the foundation of that really is the purpose of our lives here, to evolve that consciousness. And that's why I call myself a catalyst for your evolution and transformation, because I'm here to offer my services, techniques of breath work, and so on that help you to take that leap. And that's, again, what Rythmia is here for. So study is the gathering of knowledge, but ideally not just intellectual. Remember, we're talking about intellectual indigestion, but ideally experiential, where which we'll see how to make it more experiential as we talk about how, which is really the next step here. And you know, so how that, you know, study. You've been studying in school all our lives, and, you know, I dare say they rarely teach effective study habits. And it wasn't until I started studying spiritually and I actually had a method that I started to see that there was a deeper way to really ingrain information into your being. And of course, this being the highest information on how to relate directly to your soul or to God. So what you'll need if you're going to study, ideally, if you take these suggestions, you'll need a book and or a Kindle or you know, audio book or whatever. You'll need a highlighter, something to be able to mark important passages. You need a notepad or journal, and of course, pen and pencil to write in that journal, and also to be able to write in the margins of the book and all that. So ideally, this is a book that's yours, right? Don't go borrowing a friend's book and then mark it all up, or getting a book from the library and doing this. But, and of course, if it's a recording, it makes it a little bit harder to do the highlighting and stuff. Then the journal and pen becomes even more important, because you're gonna have to transfer thoughts from that audio onto the paper. We also used to have like we had a system of little 3x5 cards, and a little 3x5 card holder. Some of you might know this from, it's like a recipe box, right? A little 3x5 card box, you open it up, you can pull out recipes. We used to take the most poignant quotes from anything we studied and put them on the 3x5 card with a little subject heading. So it might be a heading about meditation, or about faith, or about fearlessness, or about truth or love, you know. And then you start to gather a number of cards with these different topics. And so when you're feeling in the mood for love, right, or to know more about love, to reflect more, you could go back to your box, start picking up those cards, and you know, could spend all your time studying quotes on just love, rather than your average daily study, which will navigate through any chapters or anything in a book. So let's see. Hi, Christian. Paramahansa Yogananda Kriya Yoga. Yes, that's who I'm talking about. I'm about to read Autobiography of Yogi. Do you recommend half-hour study a day? Yes, I do recommend at least half an hour study a day. So this is really what we're talking about now. So we talk about, you got a book, you got notepad, pen, journal, highlighter, all that kind of stuff, and get a space, you know, someplace comfortable, someplace inviting. Like I said, I always like to study outside. It's just more natural and made me feel good. And, you know, now find a book from a source you trust. Now, we just talked about Paramahansa Yogananda. He was a spiritual master who came to the West from India in 1920, established an organization called Self-Realization Fellowship in 1925, and that's been going strong ever since. And that's where the organization I was a monk within. So he wrote this book, Autobiography of Yogi, also a number of amazing spiritual books. So I really look for an important spiritual figure that like him, and you know, that whole vein of yogic teachers, Ananda Moyima, Krishnamurti, Kareem, Noli Baba, I forget how to say his name, but and his disciple Ram Dass, you may have heard him and Be Here Now. Those were some of my early influences. Alan Watts, getting into more modern day philosophers in spiritual philosophy. Anita Morjani has been here. She's interviewed me before. She loves the breath work. She wrote the book Dying to Be Me, and so I've had an outer body experience and understanding of, say, both sides of the veil, so to speak, between life and death. Wayne Dyer, who sort of nurtured her into popularity. Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist teacher, written many books. Greg Braden, he's another sort of modern day scientific philosopher. He's been here, and I've done a number of events with him now as a result, because he loves the breath work and the things that I'm about. I love what he's about, and we click really well. So he's just another one of, you know, Bruce Lipton, what's the other guy's name? Joe Dispenza. You know, you name it. These are people you can start to study. Michael Beckwith, of course, is one, you know, Rythmia staple here. Comes a couple times a year as a partner with Rythmia. So any of these people, you can start to study their stuff. And, you know, these are respected sources, and whoever you can find as well. And Susan's got to go, so see you later, and we'll see you on the recording side. So you got your text, you got whatever it is from a respectable source. Then you may want to, excuse me, it feels like I'm going to sneeze. I'm with you. You may want to find a subject that you're interested in. Maybe it's intuition, maybe it's meditation techniques, maybe it's divine love or samadhi or nirvana, seeking the highest state of consciousness. Any of these things, you can start to look and study deeper on these subjects. So you've got a good source, you've got a good subject. Now you're sitting there with your book and you've got your time and space knocked out. And ideally, if you have that same time every day, that makes it easier to make that a habit. So we had this 9 o'clock before going to work, 9 to 9:30 time. That might not be practical for you. Maybe you do it in the afternoon. I remember when I used to work, before I was a monk, I used to work for the retreat that we had. And at lunchtime, I think I had an hour and a half for lunch. I'd go up, I'd study for half an hour, then I'd come back down, I'd eat lunch, and then go back into it. So whatever time you got. So then you got, then the study method is basically in 3 parts, essentially. So the first thing you want to do is read your text all the way through. Now, if this is a whole book, I recommend maybe if you're doing it in this 3-part process that you just read the whole first chapter. You read a chapter all the way through. Now you could, if you want to take it one step further, read the whole book all the way through and then come back to reading a chapter all the way through. What we mean by all the way through is don't stop and reflect or try to analyze any one little piece of what's going on. Try to get the broad overview of what the text is saying. All right. So right now you're just getting an understanding of where it's flowing, what the conclusion is, what how the thoughts develop. All right. So that's the first step in doing it. Let's see. So like I said, if it's a whole book, you may choose to spend the first time just reading the whole book through, and then you go chapter by chapter. Or you can do this, read the first chapter, and then go to step number 2. And so step number 2 is then, let's just say it's a chapter. In that chapter, read a paragraph at a time, all right? So you're reading each paragraph, and now you're really trying to get the essence of each paragraph. So this is a much slower process. You might not get through the whole chapter, paragraph by paragraph, in a 30-minute study period of time. That's all right. You just take it little by little. So the first time you read the whole thing through, just get the general overview. Second time now you're reading each paragraph. And this is where the highlighter comes in. Try to highlight within each paragraph the main point. And usually a paragraph, if it's ideally constructed, is constructed around a main point with then supporting material in that paragraph. The next paragraph that comes up has another whole main point, which then has supporting material, and so on and so on. So try to find those main points. This is getting you to intellectually engage with the material, to say, what are they really trying to say? And what is the most important point they're really trying to make for me to understand? You can also, as you highlight those important points, you can summarize them as well in your own words. And this especially if you're doing it from an audio recording. I know audiobooks and all that kind of stuff are more popular these days. So if we are listening a lot to audiobooks, obviously you can't do this if you're listening to it in a car, but ideally you're listening to it somewhere where, again, your study period is where you dedicated time to being solely with the material. So you're not doing something else, distracting your consciousness, and you can write. You can write down a summary of whatever important point is going on. That's it. So highlight the important points, write a summary of those paragraph by paragraph. So now, the next time you go through, the third time around, the third point in this whole study process is to go back on those important points. And then, so you take, now, one important point and you sit and meditate on it. So the first paragraph, you had 10 sentences, you found the one sentence that it was really all about, and then you use that sentence as your focus for meditating. So you think about that sentence, you sit there, you just allow yourself to meditate. You might dwell on that sentence over and over. Let divine inspiration, intuitive knowledge start to seep in around that sentence. Reflect where that is present in your life, where it's not present in your life, where it needs to be present, how you could act differently so this idea could be more present in your life. This is really the crux of the study, right? Again, you can get knowledge for the sake of knowledge, but we're really looking for knowledge for the sake of the purpose of life, which again is your own conscious evolution, your own self-actualization or self-realization. So whatever you're studying really has to ultimately relate back to that if it's going to be of any value other than entertainment value or impressive cocktail party conversation. Which if you're going to a cocktail party, maybe they don't even care about spiritual subjects. But you get my point, right? Let's see if Alexandra does. How do you keep spiritual study with small children? I feel like the world bars mothers from joining in so much of the time. Motherhood is a unique proposition in and of itself to offer us a lot of lessons in life. A lot of mothers would jokingly say, because another one of these 5 spiritual habits is meditation. So mothers would tell me they engaged in momitation, which basically means that you do your best to keep a little space of calm and quiet while the rugrats are running around everywhere. With regards to study, I would say this about being a parent and with children, is that children are probably more our teachers than we are their teachers. At least I believe that we're here the children are here to teach us spiritual lessons. We're here to teach children just practical lessons of like how not to get killed in this physical reality, how not to run out in front of a car or to stay away from ferocious animals and that kind of stuff, right? We just need to teach them how to navigate through this reality, but they're coming fresh from source, and as such, their perspective and the things they do are still very deeply in connection. You may have heard stories about children still being able to see angels and talking, to imaginary friends who are more than just imaginary playmates. They're actual angelic entities and these things that are, that they can still perceive because the veil hasn't come fully over their consciousness because they're still youthful. So, barring the ability to read, having the time to actually do that, watch your children, and with the perspective. I mean, if you're at the playground and you wish you could be studying, it's like, all right, Lord, teach me through these beings. What are they trying to tell me right now? And a lot of times, the lesson is, the freedom of spontaneity, the value of a life lived in the present moment. How kids can go from one emotion to the next, and they don't hold on a lot of times to grudges and things like that. So there's a lot of deep spiritual study that can be done just in observation of your children. That being said, too, I would say that there is you can get smaller type of books that don't have a lot of meat to them, but they got a lot of substance in the few words and paragraphs that they do have, that you just read one, read that paragraph. You might have to skip to that point too, is you just read one paragraph while you're at the playground or watching your kids, and then you've got that idea mulling around your head, and you may even once again, combine those two methods. See if your children are exhibiting anything that can help you conceptualize better in physical reality what these concepts that you just read are. So there are ways to do it, and you know, I won't profess that it's easy, and that's again one of the reasons why, as monks, you didn't take on a wife and you didn't create a family and all that, because those things are major time commitments. You have to, you know, commit time to your wife. You have to commit time to your children and your family in order to make sure they grow. And that is a path in and of itself. And with that, we still need to find the time to do these habits. Now, I've seen, as I've been out in the world, you know, I call these the 5 daily habits of highly spiritual people, because they were daily when I was a monk. We had the time to do them daily. I'm still trying to think what is the minimum amount of time. They should definitely be done weekly. Never should any of these 5 be done, you know, any less than once a week. But you know, so if you're spiritual studying, maybe instead of being able to study half an hour 5 times a week, it's half an hour 3 times a week, or half an hour 2 times a week, or even just once a week if you can. But you can start somewhere. Start with these habits, and they have a way. Habits that improve your life have a way of making you want to do them more as you go along. So so hopefully that answers that. Great question about integrating family life and spiritual life, which kind of is the task for many of us. So a few more people have joined on. I'm a mother, and I just got back from Rythmia, and I'm working to change my whole lifestyle. Let me tell you, my children have noticed the change in me from the first day I got home. My kids now support my time alone to meditate or study or whatever I need to do, and it's a beautiful gift to give them so early in life. I'm here if you'd like to chat more. Let's help each other. Again, so Vara's replying to Alexandra there, who was asking about children. Perfect. And this is, I love to have that connection. And Vara's also saying, love what you're saying about children teaching us lessons. They really do. Thank you for stating it so clearly, Christian. Well, thank you there too. So we're all in this together. We're all learning. And I love how, you know, people who are in the common challenge are figuring it out. So so with that, we move on. And so I think, so I got to the second thing. Did I get to the third piece? I don't know. But let's say we read through the paragraph. We go over these important points, then the points that you've highlighted. You're meditating on them, to recap the third point. And then as you're meditating them, you're getting inspirations on them. Then you write down in your journal your inspirations. This is how you make study personal then, how you're personalizing it, how you take the information that somebody else with a high level of consciousness has, and how you start to assimilate it in your life. Where do you see where that could be applied? Where do you see where you're already applying it, you didn't even know it? Or where do you see where you've had the opportunity, and for whatever reason you've neglected to seize that opportunity to apply that lesson, and why, again? And in this, we're actually working in tandem with another of those 5 habits, which is introspection, or really getting in touch with what you're doing on a daily basis. The whole bottom line, how does this information relate to your life? You know, it doesn't matter how inspired it is. If you don't find some value to your own personal experience, it's like watching a television show that you derive great entertainment from, but when it's gone, it's basically out of your consciousness, and you move on to the next show, which you consume with fervor, but you know, doesn't leave you with any lasting substance. All right, so integrate these ideas into your life. Then once you see how they relate, The final real step, and this is beyond study then, is to start to apply them. And this is where we start to use the habit of meditation, the habit of introspection, the habit of study, which we talked about, habit of exercise, keeping the physical vehicle up to date, up to working condition, optimal condition. And then 5, the habit of service, of serving humanity in some way to really bring all these things together and put the rubber to the road, so to speak. So with that, let's see. The person, Ariana, joined. Welcome. And really brings me close to the end. If you got any questions, if you got any comments, if you'd like to suggest any topics or anything like that, feel free. While I basically say a few closing things, but just imagine, what if you put these points into practice by, making a commitment to study, trying to do it half an hour a day or half hour as many days a week as you can, finding, good source material, people who you trust and admire, good subjects that you really want to know about. Then you start reading them through, go back and read them paragraph by paragraph and assimilate each paragraph, and then go through and really dive into deeper meditation and contemplation about those nuggets of wisdom. And those are the ones that we would typically put on those 3x5 cards that then we could keep in a file. And when you wanted to know about divine love, now you've got a stack of 50 cards that are specifically about divine love, and you can read them from all different sources, rather than going to one text and trying to read through all the different subjects to find those nuggets about love alone. So, see how, if you were to do this, how much more vibrant your reading becomes, and how much more what you're reading, what you're assimilating starts to become alive in your awareness, how it guides you to implement changes in your life, and ultimately shows up in the betterment of your own life and your own conscious evolution. So this is really the promise by studying spiritually what is possible in your life. And like I said, it was one of the 5 daily habits that we had in the monastic life, a life dedicated to the highest pursuit of mankind, the evolution of our consciousness to our own self-realization. And so if we were doing it there, I extrapolate that it's something important to do in every aspect of our lives. So with that, wait to see if anybody wants to say anything else, ask any more questions, or put any more comments in. While we're doing this, I will say, I don't mind if we continue this conversation on an individual level or any conversation. If you want to friend me on Facebook, you can do so by looking up R. Christian Minson, the letter R. Christian Minson, which is me. And then I just ask, when you do friend me, you always include a message that just says, where we're connected and why you want to be friends. That's common to any friend you have, right? You wouldn't just be a stranger on the street and walk up and say, "Hi, can I be your friend?" Right? You at least introduce yourself. You say, "Well, I'm friends with Joe, your neighbor, and I've heard a lot about you and want to get to know you better." If you're meeting somebody in person, you're gonna at least say that much. I don't quite understand why people just friend people without saying anything these days. And so bottom line is, I don't have a lot of time to go through all the friends and vet everybody. There's some random characters I'd rather not be friends with. So send me that message, and it's almost an instant guarantee that we can continue this conversation. That being said, too, you might check out my website, breathflow.com. You might check me out on Instagram, R. Christian Minson, YouTube. I think it's Breath Flow or R. Christian Minson again. So with those, find me elsewhere, anywhere. And of course, Rythmia, rythmia.com. If you want to know about Rythmia, call the number above and get all the info about coming here. This is a place where you can start that whole spiritual study trend, because there's a lot of information that we got here. A lot of information you can take home in the aftercare package we have, thought leader courses and things to chew on. Great wisdom for months and months to come. Excuse me. So Kevin Peterson says the timing of this discussion was perfect. I love when I hear that, because it's always, everything starts to work in divine synchronicity the more in tune that you get. And so I just give it up to the universe that she used me the way that will best be in alignment with everybody's needs. And so at least I'm in alignment with Kevin Peterson's needs this week. Thanks, Kevin. When are you coming back? We want you back here. I know you've already been back a couple times, but hey. All right, with that, Gord Barrett, they always seem to be. Yes, thanks, man. Dave Power, hey, good to see you there. And Navarra, this has been so helpful. Going to listen again to incorporate all you've said. Well, that makes me feel good. Once again, I'm R. Christian Minson, Director of Breathwork, and your catalyst for evolution and life transformation. If there's anything I can do to help you along those lines, some personal counseling or encouraging to get here to Rythmia, look me up. And until then, I'll see you next week. Namaste.